Hi Dan, here we are, episode 10. Did we ever think we're gonna get to episode 10 when we
Woohoo!
started our podcast?
Absolutely. Always thought we would. No, not really. I had no idea. I didn't know whether we'd get past one, to be honest. so,
I think that
so
was the
yeah, we
biggest
should be
challenge, getting the
celebrating
first
today.
one done. Yeah, for
We're
sure.
definitely in celebration mode, aren't we?
It's an amazing milestone though, isn't it? Episode 10. Hopefully we look back at this one on episode 100 and see how far we've come then. But um, yeah, I think I was always confident we'd get to episode 10. I'm a pretty determined person. Um,
Yeah, I think we thought this will be an interesting experience, an experiment, and let's see where it takes us. But today we're going to try and reflect a bit on what we've done and how we've done it and what it's felt like, right? It's a little bit of a different episode today where we're not really talking about supply chain, we're talking about humans and people and how we adapt and change and how we go into things, and sometimes they turn out to be different to what you expected. So we're going to talk about what it's felt like doing a podcast for the last 3 months, I guess, pretty much.
yeah, yeah, 3 months. Yeah, through spring into summer.
Yeah, into the heat. We've been surviving the heat while we've been doing this.
Yeah, that is one of the strongest memories. One particular episode, I think it might have been episode 6 or 7.
6 or 7,
Uh,
yeah,
we
was.
we had some technical hitches in the morning, and we were pondering leaving leaving it for a week, but we didn't want to miss our rhythm, so we decided to go back in the afternoon and try again. It was so hot. Um, we felt like we were melting. That was a challenge. It was funny watching it back. I'm not sure if any audiences watched it and thought, God, those two are really struggling. But I thought it looked like we were struggling in that
You
one.
could see it for
It, it,
sure.
it it didn't feel like our biggest success. So, but we can be forgiven. Um, but yeah, I definitely remember that one. I think it's flown by, which is a good sign
It is.
because it is something that is clearly enjoyable. But just
Yeah.
I've never had a difficulty in just talking with no script.
It's clearly a talent of both of ours, So maybe our bigger challenge is knowing when to shut up. But yeah. But hey, look, we said we'd interview it ourselves today, so I'm gonna kick you off and say, yeah, why did you want to do this? Why did you say yes to doing this in the first place? Then? Come on, let's go back and think about why we started.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Why did I want to do it? Well, we both know the circumstances behind us ending up here. We were supposed to record with somebody else, and for
Yeah,
whatever reasons, we didn't happen, and we ended up just saying to each other, we saw that we got on and had a similar ideas, and shall we just do it ourselves? I think we jumped in, and I don't think we gave it too much apprehension or thought. But I think the aim was ultimately to build a community and build a dialogue, get some guests on. Now, we haven't had any guests yet, but we've got a couple coming. And we had, sadly, the technical glitches meant we couldn't record our first guest a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, it's definitely an interest amongst our peers, isn't there? So I feel like the momentum is turning. We are building that community we set out to. It just takes time. And
yeah.
I didn't really have any preconceptions about how long it would take us to build a community. Um, but I feel rumblings. I feel like we are. What
Yeah,
about
it's
you?
funny though because when we first kind of met each other and first got in touch, I was coming on as a guest, right? I mean, you were engaged with this other party, and you guys had asked me to be a guest. I was expecting like, okay, these guys obviously professional podcasters, and I'm just gonna come and answer some questions. And of course, we did that initial what would have been the first episode, which didn't actually happen. But yeah, and it was just like, oh, these are just a couple of normal guys, and we're just having a very kind of relaxed conversation, and it really kind of like, wow, okay, this is a bit different. I thought it'd be a bit more, I don't know, I don't know, I thought stressful, but maybe sort of pressured, and you'd feel I guess the burden of being recorded and people listening to what you're saying. But actually, it was just me and you having a chat, and of course, then when it didn't happen, I was really kind of pleased when you sort of said, well, should we just do it anyway? Should we just do it ourselves? And it's like, yeah, hell, let's just have a go. And and I didn't really think at the time. I was like, well, what do I want this to be? What do I want this podcast to be? And what I really wanted it is to be the podcast that I've been looking for a long time. Is a podcast around what it is that we do, so around supply chain and logistics and all the fun and and troubles and challenges around that. I think we like the rawness of what we do, and to some degree a little bit unpredictable. We're not following any scripts or anything, and I really like that, and I really wanted that to be what it is, and I'm happy that it has been that. But I just wanted to, I was looking for a podcast that was about the things that I'm interested in, so supply chain, logistics, and its impact on industry, being done by people who do it and know what they're talking about, so I can relate. And I'm like, yeah, I know what that feels like. I know what that means, and yeah, so and I've never been able to find that. And generally, interestingly, most of the podcasts I have looked at have generally been American ones, not British. I don't think there's been much in the way of British supply chain kind of podcasting. I'm probably now going to find out there's loads, but so it's nice to be able to get out there and do the thing that we were looking to find, and I think that's been nice.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I want you to make it accessible and enjoyable,
Yeah.
because supply chain isn't really a career that's promoted in schools or colleges.
No,
It's not, people can tend to
you
find
fall into it.
their place in supply chain rather than study for it. I mean, you do get logistics degrees and different routes in, but
You don't
it's
have one,
such
and
a
I don't have one.
no, but it's such a massive industry in so many ways globally, and it connects so many people and so many teams, and the creative world, the fashion world, logistics is integral. I've met so many people. I just wanted to connect them and have everyone find out a little bit more, behind the scenes, how fun it can be, how challenging it is. We hear a lot about various other industries, like you had fly on the wall documentaries on airports and farms and wherever else, but never really seen anything for supply chain. But it's such entertaining and interesting world, connecting so many countries and different teams and departments and businesses that um yeah, I thought that's something I want to chat about. I spend the rest of my life chatting about it, so why not actually do a podcast? And
Have I
also being
uncovered? Have I uncovered a secret desire of yours to be the Jeremy Clarkson of supply chain?
I wouldn't say I wouldn't say Jeremy Clarkson. uh I don't know. Again, I've never really had it. I haven't really ever aimed at being like anyone on a podcast. I've got no idea. I don't listen to hundreds of podcasts. I listen to football podcasts, and
Don't we all?
I guess that the ambition was somewhere along the lines to make supply chain as enjoyable and accessible as football. That sort of way of chatting. I mean, I wasn't under the illusion that we had millions of potential listeners who want to hear about supply chain in the same way as they do about football. But I just think it's a scope for discussion, and yeah, just like chatting about it in a casual way, an accessible way that is fun. I mean, we've done 10 episodes and we've done 9 separate subjects, and some resonate better than others. But one that did really well comparatively was what's the future of supply chain as a career, etc. That got a lot of listeners and subscribers comparatively. So it's obviously something that does interest people, and every business. Just maybe a bit scary
I really hope that people can get from the conversations that we have is to kind of, it's a little bit under the pallet wrap, is lift the covers off a bit, and because I think there's this image of supply chain of being this just a very technical backroom kind of process almost, whereas actually supply chain and logistics is a people industry, right? It lives and dies by the people that are in it, and it's so. I mean, like many other parts of business, it's so reliant on relationships and collaboration, and I think I'm not sure that's necessarily understood, and I really hope through the conversations that we have that starts to become clearer, and
Yeah,
to
the
the point
people,
of
the
the
connectivity.
of the career side, it then sort of says to people, well, actually, so this is not really like a geek squad sitting in a back room banging away on a laptop. It's about connecting to people and across the world, right, and across cultures and across companies, and actually that there's a really interesting side to it, because it is kind of known as the career that no one actually aims to go into and just ends up in. It's true for me. I didn't go into take my first job in supply chain thinking, hey, this is the start of a career. It was I was out of work, and it was a bit of paid work. That's why I got into it, and it just opportunity just continued to find me. So I took it. I don't know that it was necessarily any different for you. It wasn't really a career choice at the time. It was just you kind of went into it and actually found that there was something about it that made you stay. So
What I think is that everything you touch, everything in front of you, the sandwich you're eating, there's a story behind every single component part of that. That has managed to come from one place to another, to be put together and delivered to you. There's a story behind every stage of that that begins in different countries all over the world and ends up with you. That Deliveroo driver delivering your pizza. There's a story beyond that that is so interesting, and we covered that in another episode. But that so much to discover, and when you've got someone who's leaving school and they think I'm looking for an exciting career, they probably turn their nose up initially at supply chain, thinking it's all about factories or driving a van or having to be really smart or
it's just all
I'm
about
not sure
numbers.
what they think, but there's so much to it, there's so much to, and there's so much changing and there's so much to do with sustainability now. There's so many skill sets and areas that can be put to good use. So I hope some of our stories come to life
Yeah,
uh, on the podcast because that was my aim. I think we can certainly improve in some of our storytelling, um,
there's no doubt.
bringing some of the supply chain elements to life. It sounds dull, but I've got a roll of tape on the desk in front of me. But it's biodegradable tape. It's completely sustainable in every way. Um, there's a reason why it's been made like this, but it's just how can you make a piece of tape interesting? I think supply chain does make it interesting. So, what was my goal? To make things like tape interesting to the wider
There's a
audience.
challenge. There's a challenge. Well, look, one of the funny things, of course, about this is that we really didn't know each other when we started this.
Yeah,
In fact, we did a few episodes before we even met in person.
yeah.
So, I guess it's interesting to think, what were your assumptions about me, and how did you find, what surprised you about me, or because as I say, we were pretty much strangers when we started.
Yeah, I've always been quite an open person who's just interested and just interested in general in people and quite comfortable around people because I have no illusions really. I'm just sort of an open book and I take people for who they are. I see the best in people. So I found it easy to get talking to you. I think that was one of the main appeals. But yeah, it's been interesting to hear about your career as time has gone on. And it's funny, isn't it, when we don't tend to celebrate ourselves, particularly in life. And I think you've got that humility. You don't big up this career, but you've got decades of global experience and complex problems. So much, so much experience that people would benefit from, and that's what I found fascinating. How many different elements you've worked on over the years, and yeah, I didn't expect you to be more arrogant. I don't expect anyone to be, but yeah, it's just an amazing amount and breadth of experience, but a very personable demeanour behind it, down to earth, and really in love with supply chain. And again, that was the chemistry that bonded.
Yeah.
Absolutely, can talk about supply chain for to whoever for days on end. And we've been to a couple of exhibitions together now, a couple of events. And I don't know. I think I see something similar in you when we talk to the stalls and the people behind the stall. We sort of come alive, and they come alive, and just ideas flow. So yeah. But what
Yeah,
about me? I
I think
thought
that
I'd
has
probably
been
be
a
a bit
very
more of an
mutual.
eccentric character. But what about you? Have you learnt anything about me or from me or
Well, I think the most
despite me?
shocking thing is that you're like more than 10 years younger than me, and that really stuns me.
Yeah,
And
and I
it, like
look 10
when I
years
worked that
older.
one out,
Yeah.
it's like, really, God, how does that happen? So, but yeah, there you go. But yeah, I think in a lot of ways similar. I think I really admired the way that you have this really, and you talked about openness. You have this really open mind, and 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 you see supply chain in everything, and I love that. The conversations that we have, just then is like you just looked at that roll of tape and you see the supply chain in that tape. And I think, that spurs us all into all sorts of conversations, whether we're on the podcast or not. And, maybe I've thought a few times that we should record what we're not planning to record, because some of the conversations that we have, so we say off camera, are as entertaining as anything. So, I think I found you have this wonderful way of looking at people and looking at life and looking at objects and, finding something in that, and I think, yeah, we've gone off and had some incredible discussions about various things that on the face of it, I don't think I would ever even have attempted to talk about. Because as you say, supply chain is this vast thing, and we're all good at parts of it. But there would, a couple of months ago, I would have definitely shied away from, oh, we're going to talk about this today. And I'd be thinking, ooh, it's not really my area of expertise. But you know what? We know the supply chain and we can have interesting conversations about it, even if it's not your area of expertise. And I think, you've made that you've made me feel very comfortable in being able to do that and know that we'll turn it into something something good. And plus, I admire your editing skills because you do it all and I do none of it. So, so
Lots to learn there.
yeah.
But
Well,
I've enjoyed
obviously I have
that.
even more. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, obviously, you've got a lot of specialty in automation, and I've liked how you brought me into that world, and yeah, it just made it seem exciting to me, and I hope or more accessible. And I hope I've done that with some of my areas, and I hope we're doing that with the audience. That is our aim. Um, Yes, do hire an expert, do talk to an expert, but don't feel absolutely daunted or don't feel pressurized into making decisions that you don't understand. It's okay to talk things through. It's okay to not know everything. To if you don't know what you don't know, that's an amazing place to be. I just want people to have that curiosity, and because with the curiosity, your limits are endless.
yeah,
If you're not curious and you close the door on things, your limits are smaller than than you would ever anticipate them to be, because
Yeah,
you just don't know where you know where you begin or you end. Your knowledge, your expertise, the limitations, the challenges, too set in stone. So I'd like to hope that some of our discussions just encourage a bit more dialogue at businesses and supply chain people are getting themselves a little bit more involved in the bigger discussions in businesses and
yeah, yeah.
understanding how everything interlocks, because we're connected
The-
to absolutely everything. And you know, whenever I think about upcoming projects and who would I like to work with, and I just get so excited because it's like, give me anything like events. What an exciting thing to get involved in! If someone's holding an event, they might think this is all very marketing heavy, but I'd like to hope if we're talking about it, we're putting that supply chain frame on it, and people think, you know, yeah, if I get that bit right, this will be a lot less stressful and more enjoyable for me. And I can expand my horizons and do more complicated events. It builds confidence in people. That's what I'd like to think. I mean, I don't know what percentage of our listeners are editorial or marketing people, but I'd like to reach those people. Um, Maybe that's where we need to invite some marketing specialists on the podcast, because it might not be our particular field of expertise, but that's
well,
what I love about
yeah, and
your
I think
story.
that is one of the opportunities that we have. Right? I mean, you can talk supply chain till the cows come home, right? But I think one of the things that I would really love to do, and hopefully we can through this podcast over time, it is to bring people in that are nothing to do with supply chain, and understand how they perceive supply chain. So like, yeah, maybe it's marketing, or maybe it's commercial, or maybe it's a finance person, or whoever. Really doesn't really matter, but they will all have a perception of supply chain and what supply chain is, what it does, what people are like in it, what the problems it causes business, whether it's actually a business enabler or is it a business blocker. And I really, having done this a little bit now, and you kind of build up your confidence a bit about talking about things that maybe you don't have a clear view on at the start. I really want to be able to, like I say, sit here, but I stand here and talk to some people who might have a perspective on supply chain that I have never even considered or perceived, and just learn a bit about it, rather than, because I always think there's a little bit of a danger when it's just you and I, that then it starts to sound a bit like us preaching about what's good and what's bad and what's right and what's wrong. And because we've been doing it a long time, so we're going to have opinions, we're going to have views, and I would love to just get somebody on that says, you know what, when I look at supply chain, this is what I think, this is what I see, this is what they do to me. And it would be really interesting to have a discussion around, like, wow, never seen it from that perspective before. That's really interesting, and it might change the way we view things, right? So
But it's one of the mantras of my career is like go and walk, go and see, go and walk and talk to the people doing the
yeah,
job. And I don't just restrict that to supply chain. If there's an issue around events and photo shoots, I don't just look at it from an editorial perspective. Now, a lot of people in my career have boxed themselves in a bit, made assumptions, and been frustrated when nothing's changed or nothing's improved. I've always gone and made the effort to speak to the people and understand it from their perspective. And I think how we can almost learn in real time is to speak to people from different departments, different areas of industry, and understand what is their perception and what do they, where are their challenges with supply chain, so we can
yeah,
continue to learn how to improve as supply chain professionals, because we can't know everything. Now, we do speak about good practice and our experiences and how, we are good at what we do. We've made improvements. We've built legacies we're proud of. But we're
yeah,
so curious and keen to learn that how do you, I don't want us to stop doing that. And in terms of the podcast, I would love the conversation to flow with people who want to challenge us. Like what you talked about last week, it doesn't apply to me. Okay, well, great. Why? Like, tell us where we're wrong. We have had some good chats on LinkedIn on some of our posts around stuff, and I invite more of it. When people dig a bit deeper and challenge some of the things we've said. And can you explain from my perspective? I've had people from all different areas saying, well,
Yeah.
how does it work from my perspective? That's what I want to do. Talk about that. Like, how can we enable and influence more people through learning more? So I would welcome guests from
Yeah,
all
and it
over the
comes
place.
back to that curiosity piece, right? And I think it and I'm going to sound like an old miserable git now. Um, I do feel that you see so often a lack of curiosity now. I do feel that it's almost like it's a bit of a dying art that people they don't want to put the effort in to find things out, so they'll just ask, and get a
Convenience.
yeah, they'll get an
Everything
answer
is
and they'll accept
convenient.
and there's not necessarily the same, a kind of desire to be curious and to challenge their perceptions, or to get into a conversation with somebody that might have a polar opposite perspective, and see that as a really interesting opportunity, rather than it turning feel like it's like someone attacking you, or you hear about this all the time, and I do really struggle with this concept. It's almost like it's not okay to disagree with people these days, and it's like, come on, it's one of the best things about being a human and being able to communicate in this way, is that we can have a view and we can hear other people's views, and we can debate whether we think we're wrong or right, or does it even matter? And we can just agree to disagree, and we can have polar opposite perspectives on something, yet still be a friend, or be relatable to each other. And I pray that we never lose that skill. And I think podcasts like the one that we're trying to do, and many, many others that are probably more interesting and better than ours, but are more developed, continue to just try and shake the tree a bit and stimulate people into thinking a bit differently, or just considering a perspective, and maybe being a little bit insulted or annoyed about it, because I think that's good, because it means you care about something enough to get annoyed. So I'd really want to be able to have more of those kind of conversations where someone might say something that I fundamentally disagree with, but great, let's try and understand why I'm like that, or why you think that, and at the end of it, we might agree, we might not, but it will be an interesting conversation, and I think there's not enough of that around anymore.
I've always liked to make the impossible possible, or make ideas happen, rather. And I love the discussions that filter into those sort of projects. We really want to
Yeah,
do this. It's never been done before. And you work backwards. Like, what do we need to make that actually happen? And what's not in place now? Um, love those sort of discussions. And one of the most interesting realizations you have in a business is when you go and ask someone, what is stopping you making this happen? Where would supply chain getting in your way? Well, you're bloody annoying. Oh, why? Too many checkpoints, too many rules. You don't listen to us. Okay, okay. I love having that sort of challenging discussion. What is getting in the way of us all achieving our goal? I will tell you where I think you're getting in our way. Please just tell me where we're getting in your way. You've never taught us. You've never made it clear why you are asking us to do this. You just set the rules and we don't understand them. Okay, right. Little bit of training goes a long way, and a bit more information and understanding about your audience. So I think I'd like to talk about these some of these things, like why does this happen? Why can't this be done? And break it down and understand. Have a live discussion around.
yeah,
What? what prohibits X, Y, or Z from happening, and where do we see it going in future? What possibilities are there for supply chain in the future? What would it entail to have same day or real time delivery and stuff like that? We know the challenges, we know the costs,
We do.
but it'd be great to break that down with someone who's coming from a completely different angle, to be
Yeah.
honest.
It's nice, I think you can hear in you and I, hopefully, that we have a great passion to continue this on and to do more with it and find more things to talk about and yeah, as you say, bring people in to generate some interest and some unexpected outcomes. I think that one of the best things, that we have is unexpected outcomes. And when you look back on our massive, I say 10 episodes, is 9 because this is the 10th. Have there been any ones there that have kind of like, God, I really didn't think that was where that was going, or that really felt like it wasn't really doing much, but actually it seemed to go very well. Have you got a memory of any of those that have put you in
Well,
that
yeah,
perspective?
I've got a memory of one that I think did really well, which was returns. Is something that bothers everybody. It's a reality to everybody, no matter
I
what
think it,
team they're in. I think that one resonated as I expected. The
yeah.
one that didn't was I had great hopes for, very high hopes for. Are we getting in the way? I thought we were really confident of that one. We really liked the dialogue. We felt we were very
Mm,
confident. It was episode 4, I think. We're hitching our stride. It absolutely went flat, and I think what we learnt from that was people didn't really know what we were what we were
what was it?
talking about. It was a bit of a personal discussion rather than a
Yeah, was it more of
a
a
pointed
confessional than it
discussion.
was?
It didn't really have a beginning or end. We did set out, didn't we, to ask the question at the beginning of each podcast, and then circle back to it. And I think we've done quite well, but not so much on that episode. What about you?
Yeah.
What are your lingering memories?
I remember one that I just felt was quite challenging when we were recording it, and I didn't feel, I guess, in the flow particularly, and I felt like I was having to really think hard to make sure it was getting my thoughts across. It wasn't that I didn't have any, but I was just found it really felt I wasn't sure that I had communicated it that well. Was the one about ethics and the one about where does our products come from. I came off that recording thinking, I don't know what that one's going to feel like and sound like. But actually, it did pretty well. I think it got quite a lot of interest. And besides the returns one, which is, I think, our most successful, kind of viewership for, actually, it did really well. And there was a lot of interest. But, and on the opposite side to that, the one we did a week ago, obviously close to my heart on warehouse
Oh, of
automation.
course,
I
yeah.
thought that was a fab conversation. And I thought, and it was based on somebody asking us about it as well. And I thought, this one's going to fly, it's going to do great. And it's kind of died a death. But, so yeah, I was gutted about that one, to be honest. But because, as you say, it is something that has been the backbone of my career, really. And yeah, so it was a bit disappointing to see no one
We
watching it.
we'll probably circle back to that one at one point when we learn a bit more about who's listening and why they're listening, because it could be a different frame that we use there.
Yeah,
Our listeners may include founders who are really at the beginning stages rather than the big scale. In fact, maybe many of our friends who are working at larger scale operations and have already been involved in these projects and nodding away and liking and listening, but they're not, maybe not inquiring. Um, but there's definitely a subject I think is of interest. But who knows? Maybe it's a long way from certain people's minds.
yeah. Well, I think this suggests that it probably is, and but I do like your idea that you're gonna like it because we're gonna keep talking about it until you do. I'm joking,
No, if there'll be an opportunity that comes up again, because it's, as we know, it's inevitable. It's an inevitable discussion when a business gets to a certain
yeah, it is.
size, when
It is.
investors coming, and rounds of investment, and they start asking how you're going to decrease costs and increase output, and it always is the first thing someone clutches from the hat and says, "Well, we're going to automate the entire warehouse." Okay, we know there's a lot more that comes into it before that decision. Is a
And it's
brilliant
rare that you ever can.
brilliant projects to get involved in, but it's not like a push a button and the whole thing becomes a fully functioning automated robotic warehouse. We've been involved in so many of those.
It's
Well, I was
just
going to
as
say
well.
pipe dreams, but there's it's a very interesting topic. I think that maybe returns is a little bit closer to the bone, just because everybody, not all industries, have such a high return rate as apparel, but it's almost like the one area no one has come up with a true solution for. They've made returns easier,
Yeah.
but they
I
haven't solved the issue with reducing returns.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Not fully.
and for retail, e-commerce retail in particular, non-food e-commerce retail, and at the pinnacle of that, apparel. But for a multitude and even food retailers have returns as a problem, right? When it's e-commerce,
Unsold
um,
stock and
but
yeah,
I just think it's a big topic, and it's one that, as you say, there's not a satisfactory answer to yet. The reality is it can't carry on the way it is. It simply can't. But it's not a sustainable long-term perspective or a solution. So it is a big topic, and it is an important one because it has to be fixed. That we need some innovation. Something needs to change because it's the road it's on is not it can't be sustained. Companies will simply go out of business. So yeah, it's. I think we'll circle around on that one a few times, I'm sure, and I would love again to have a guest on to really get into that.
oh,
Maybe
I
talk
think I've
about
got a
some of the
good idea
solutions
for
or how
who.
we stop it.
Yeah, got a great
Yeah,
idea for a future guest on return. Someone who lives and breathes that industry. Oh, also, maybe a future topic for Under the Pallet Wrap round table as we branch out into lots of
yeah,
other areas. So
yeah. That would be an exciting thing to get a few people together and just have a live discussion
yeah,
around
what
some
prohibits
topics.
it? What
Yeah,
prohibits it from happening, and what can we do about that? Where can we innovate? There's a few things going on, aren't there, around AI and size and fit and the rest of it, but I don't necessarily feel that any of it is fully developed or resonating just yet. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely circle around to that one because it's very much in the supply chain news at the moment because of the sustainability initiatives that are becoming mandatory next year. So everyone, it has to be at the forefront. Returns, it has to be. So we'll definitely do another episode on returns, and I promise we'll do another episode on automation as well. How do we do it cheaply and so that I don't have to get involved? Is probably how do I click my fingers and make my business as efficient as possible?
if you want to know how to do automation well, then yes, reach out because it's what brings a smile to my face.
What do you want to know about automation? And doesn't have to be warehouse automation. It can be systems automation.
Process
Anything can be
automation.
automated, big or small. Um,
Yeah.
we just want to hear about people's pain points. Ultimately, if you don't discuss them, then you don't know what you can do about them. So um, that's what I'm all about. I absolutely love walking into chaotic operations because my mind is absolutely alive with ideas. So I just want to talk about the most chaotic warehouses people have seen. We've we've touched on it a little bit, haven't we? But I've walked into warehouses where I've been scared that something was going to collapse right in front of my eyes, and it has done. I've seen a few things falling over, and you know, there's been some adventures over the years.
Some oh my gods, yes.
Yeah, some interesting practices going on, and some things, some processes where you can't help but ask why, So hopefully we'll be able to share a few more of them over the coming weeks as well. If that's what people want to hear, if I'm sure people don't necessarily want to submit some of their more embarrassing tales, but if they want to hear some funny um, instances, some of the things we've seen, maybe we could incorporate them a little bit more because maybe that will help people realise, you're not alone.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an opportunity for us as we go through into other episodes.
Yeah, we weren't born knowing everything, and we don't know everything now, and still
Mm.
making discoveries as we go on, and that's what keeps us passionate and real. And I also like the stories where you start one project and you actually uncover the need for another. That's also a good road of discovery. Um, working on a project where you're actually assigned to fix something, but you realise all the component parts, what's prohibiting what you've been brought in to fix from actually happening. So we've got plenty of stories around that as well. So if we were to summarise what we want episode 11 to be, more of the same or
I think the ethos of what we're doing is right. I think we need to keep it honest, keep it open to going where the conversation needs to go. So I think all of those things we definitely, I think have been great kind of pillars of what we do, and we should continue with that. But I think we need to push ourselves out there more, move away from what we're necessarily comfortable with, and start talking. And I think because I think there's a little bit. It's like, well, I know we want to talk about that, but I don't think we know enough about it. But actually, maybe that's why we should. Talk about things that we don't, that we're not such an expert on. Like, so an obvious place for me um, would be, I've never really had that much to do with sourcing and procurement. So maybe we should talk about that, but maybe we should bring somebody in who actually knows what they're talking about. But yeah, I think, going forwards, I think we need to, yeah, widen our horizons and talk about things that maybe we're not quite so comfortable with, where we've got to learn something, rather than always being the one sat here with all the answers, or we think we have all the answers. And yeah, I think that would be something I'd really like to see us do in the coming weeks.
absolutely. I think we've provided each other with lots of food for thought and lots of excitement for the episodes to come. Um, so yeah, we're still figuring this out. I mean, hopefully we're talking to our audience. We don't know who you necessarily are yet. But if you're listening to this, thank you. We're learning as we go, and we are very glad that you're here watching us learn. Um, and we're very open to suggestions.
I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And if I had a want from what we've learned in this first 10, and what I'd really want going forward is more interaction. I would love people to, even if it's just say, you know what, that was rubbish. You would just go around in circles,
Yeah,
and you meant, you know, I'd be happy with that. I really want to know what people like, what people don't like, and I'd love someone to go on and goes, you were talking utter bollocks, because it's like, great. Tell me why. Why was I talking bollocks? And let's get into
yeah,
a
just
interesting.
invite the
I don't
discussion,
want to fall
an
out with
open
anybody.
discussion about supply chain from all comers, from everybody who works
Yeah.
in ecom operations, manufacturing, procurement, anyone, customers. We're all part of supply chain. So anyone who wants to know anything, tell us if you're learning or whether we should shut up or whether we should be corrected on anything we're saying. That's the type of community we are trying to build.
Yeah. And if you've really got something to say and you want to come on and say it, let's have that conversation, because we're really open to bringing people in to engage in a new and wide conversation.
Yeah, the more challenging the guest, the better for us. Great.
Here's to
Well,
the
thanks,
next
Dan.
10.
Well
Here's to the
done.
next 10.
Yeah, episode 10. Here's to the next 10 for now. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you for episode 11 soon.
You certainly will. And don't forget, tell us what you think. We really do want to know. Thanks a lot. See you next week.